We watched a documentary last night entitled The Social Dilemma. Shout out to my cousin Ellen Schwaller for putting it on our radar. And, oh man, it was one of those documentaries that makes you worried about the situation of our world, largely related to the role that social media platforms play. Welcome to Finding God in the Times of COVID. Today is October the 17th. The movie's essentially a series of interviews with execs that had formerly worked for the big social media networks. And they talk about their experience both within the companies and then their concern. And the concern primarily is how the pressure of businesses to do what makes money causes them to not seek, ultimately, to not seek the best interest of their users. And they point out that the only people that get talked about as users are recipients of, social media or software companies and people who are involved in illegal drug trade. Those are who we call users. Which points towards some of the fundamentally addictive quality of the algorithms that are behind the social media platforms. Now, a more troubling side, maybe judging is not even the right way to do it, a troubling side of the social media is the way that it's impacted young people. So they did some studies of not only people's self-image, but more specifically how preteens and teens, the incidence of their seeking out mental health support or inpatient psychiatric care and suicides, those rates have skyrocketed since the arrival of social media, because there's so much pressure on social media, especially for young people, but for others, of course, as well. So much pressure to present oneself a certain way, and we're sort of built as people to be able to, interact with and receive feedback from a handful of people perhaps at a time, but they point out that it's just exponential, sort of the number of people with whom you might have contact on a social media platform. Now, it's also one of those documentaries that about 4/5 of the way through it, I'm in a pit of despair, wondering if there's any way we can move forward out of this as a society. In part because of the way that news that's inaccurate has 6 times, they said, the spread of accurate news. So all of the inaccurate news that surfaces, they said, on Twitter more than others, but in all these platforms, that's more likely to be shared, and conspiracy theories abound, which has been, they make the insightful point, I happen to believe it's accurate, that the broadening of social media is what's created the divides in this country, or at least has been an integral tool to those divisions. 4/5 of the way through, I said, sort of in this pit of despair. And And then like a little, melody line of a violin carrying out this salient note in an orchestra. There's this hope. Not that things fundamentally will change, because they're already in place, and yet there's this hope still that small shifts can happen. And they give some recommendations to parents about when children should be able to utilize these technologies, and they said 16's a good age, just because there's not enough social development and there are enough problems already for children in terms of social dynamic without the expansion into a broad network. They also talk about this idea of living real life, not just virtual life, with this idea that there's this whole wonderful world which we might explore in real time, which is ultimately what might nourish us. So it might not be fully abandoning one thing in order to move toward another, but just this helpful reminder planted out there to have interactions with the real world. And I know during the times of COVID, there might be exceptions, and there's certainly ways that these other technologies help us stay connected. Heck, we're doing it right now, right now, aren't we? So how do we think critically about simple decisions we make? Can we not check our phone for at least 30 minutes after we wake up? Could we not sleep with it? Leave it somewhere else? Take a break? Remember who's in charge. Claim our ability to make decisions for what's right and good and healthy for us. I'm working on it. Blessings on your day.